What are some of my proposals, which are also in my program here, on Social Security? Raise the cap to $170,000 a year instead of $110,000. $170,000, raise the cap. You pick up most of that 14% freeloaders, right? That would solve 83% of all the Social Security financing needs for the next century. 83%. Essentially solve the problem. If you raise the payroll tax for Social Security, not Medicare, but Social Security, by 1/4% over the next 5 years, and then 1/4 and 1/4 for 20 years, in other words, every 5 years, 1/4, 1%, instead of 6.2, pay 6.45, that kind of thing, right? You would solve 100% of all the needs. If you did both of them, you'd have 186% of what you needed. You'd have 86% left over. And you know what you could do with that 86%? You could lower the retirement age to 64. You could lower the retirement age. And more young folks would get jobs. Now, my other proposal is let's nationalize all the 401k plans, because they're not making any money for anybody. Let's nationalize 401k and put it in Social Security and make businesses pay a 1% value-added tax in sales to each other, business-to-business value-added tax. Those three proposals that I've just described to you, if we created jobs at the normal rate we used to as well, and if wages were rising as they used to as well, you would now have enough money to fund single-payer universal health care. Now you could pay for it, you see, simply by those 2 or 3 measures. Okay, what about Medicare? Let me finish up by Medicare. What's the solution to Medicare? Well, I already said to trustees for Part A and B, 1/4, 1% now and 1/4% 10 years from now would solve Part A and B. You would have to also put a 1% tax on Part D for prescription drugs and have some sort of price controls on that. Now, what we also should do is why are we allowing people who are making their living off of capital gains and dividends and interest with freeloading here? Why are we allowing that? Why don't we talk about a cap on capital incomes as well? Why shouldn't those people pay into Social Security and Medicare? If you just took 1/2 of a 3.1%, make them pay 3.1%, right? And then if you had a financial transactions tax, well, now you'd have even more money for single payer. If you notice, I'm not talking about cutting anything. And I'm talking about minuscule tax increases here that aren't going to really affect the economy negatively one way or another, the stock or bond markets or whatever. And I'm not even talking about making those folks with $4 or $5 trillion that they're hoarding to put it back into the system. I mean, we could do it all that way, right? We could do it that way. Or we could do it by these minimal 1/4, 1% taxes over 10 and 20 years. That would solve the problem. In other words, the problems in Medicare and Social Security are not intractable. They're very small problems financially that have been created because, they passed prescription drugs and didn't pay for it in some ways, or we let the health insurance companies and the healthcare industry run away healthcare costs, and Obamacare is not controlling healthcare costs. That's going to be the thing that does it under eventually. Once you took the public option out, it's the beginning of the end. It won't last a decade. They're going to have to revise that significantly again, okay, because it doesn't control costs. That's the big problem. Cost control, health cost control. We haven't really addressed that. But if we address that, and we did something about this upside-down tax system we've created since Ronald Reagan, and went back to something that was more progressive and more fair, and if we just tweaked the tax rates on Medicare and Social Security, you would not only, and add a financial transactions tax, you would not only solve all the problems, but now you could finance Medicare for all. Now, unfortunately, these issues aren't debated anywhere, are they? They're not debated. They won't let this get into the mainstream. I mean, you won't see this. I mean, maybe you watch Bill Moyers, you might see something like this. But you wouldn't see this on Lehrer Report or, you know, my gosh, Fox or anywhere like that, right? We are all broke. It's the money's all bottled up in the rich man's pockets, and they won't let it out. And Social Security is not in a crisis. And even Medicare is not in a crisis, except Part D. And the solutions to this are really very, very simple and not very costly. We're talking about the wrong things. And as long as they keep us distracted talking about the things they want us to talk about, oh, we got to cut, oh, you know, we're in deep trouble, we're going to spin our wheels. Somehow we got to get to the real debate and the real issues, both on the tax side and on the retirement side and on the economic side. Okay, thank you. I'm going to plug my book here, copies of which I have, and also the alternative program and a DVD of a presentation I gave on this whole question down in Palo Alto 3 weeks ago.
Would you hold the book up again?
Yes. This is Obama's economy, recovering few. Why the $3 trillion in fiscal stimulus did not get a recovery for everybody. You got it for Wall Street, right? You got it for the wealthy, you got it for the corporations. The rest of us aren't there yet. Why that happened? The policies were wrong. Why that happened? And my alternative program, which is a brief summary of some of the things I've been talking about. I also talk about banking reform and tax system reform. And
could you hold it still for a moment?
Okay. Yeah, okay. All right.
That's excellent.
Okay. That's it.
Thank you.